Strong Enough merch is now available. Go to strongenoughpod.com and check out all the stuff that you can get so that you'll have those daily reminders that you are strong enough, you are worth it. Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people just like you. I'm your host, Claudia. Over the last year and a half, we've had some pretty amazing guests. And this week, we're celebrating a few of your favorites. So stay tuned for some of their best stories, great advice, and a few laughs in between. Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people just like you. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to share her 7 pillars of abundance, and she's going to tell you why she decided that it was important for her to empower women to experience resilience. Why can I not remember these 3 words? Resilience, abundance, and freedom. Yes, resilience, abundance, and freedom. Okay. Resilience, abundance, and freedom. Welcome to the show that I've been hosting for over a year and now suddenly can't remember its name. Welcome to that.
Well, when I got into that, it was a 3-month program. I went into that 3-month program over and over and over again of a total of 18 months. Because once I got in and I started to learn things about myself and, oh shit, oh, this, that, like I started to realize that what I had been through and that he's a narcissist and all the things, right? And then after that, it was really, because she talks about narcissistic personality disorder and how they show up in the child energy. And I was like, oh, and she said, the more you mother, the more they act in the child energy. The more you mother them, the more they act in the child energy. I was like, oh my God, that's so on point. So that's how I got into my healing journey. It was, God and the universe going, here's the little breadcrumbs, follow them. And I did.
I believe that happens quite often for us if we pay attention,
right?
Whether you believe, and not you, but you in general, believe in
right.
God or just another spiritual being or just the universe. I believe, God puts us in the places that we're supposed to be, and we just have to be willing to accept them.
Listen to what's being,
right.
The signs.
I love what you just said. I mean, it's sad, but I love what you just said about the child energy and the mother energy, and that the more that you portray that mother energy or release that energy, the more they release the child energy. So it sounds like just a vicious cycle of you trying to fix the person and that person just using that child energy to want more. And it just is so hard to get out of, it sounds like.
Yeah, especially because you don't know what's happening, what's going on. And so when I look back at my relationship, the more I made, so when he attempted the suicide and he lied to everybody, I was going along with the lies, right? So I was making excuses and I was covering up. So the way I describe it is, think of like the mom with the spoiled little boy, Johnny, right? That's just the name that I kind of came up with. And so mom pulls up to, school pickup and the teacher comes out and she says, oh, Mrs. K, Johnny was acting out today. He was disrespectful, or he did, X, Y, and Z in school. And the mom says, oh, I'm so sorry. He had a bad night last night. He didn't get to bed on time and he didn't get a lot of sleep. And this morning we were in a rush and he didn't get breakfast. So he's just having a bad day. And that's what it's like, but with 2 adults.
Mm-hmm. What I find so interesting about the statistic you gave earlier about divorce, and I did not know that. I knew the 50%, which is kind of thrown out there, 50% of marriages end in divorce. I did not realize that the second was 60 and the third was even higher than that. Most things that we do in life, we expect to get better as we do them. If I went out and trained for a 5K and I trained one way and had one time, and then I did the same thing but had a worse time, I think that I would quickly realize that something wasn't working.
Uh-huh.
Why do you feel like when it comes to love, we are so blind and we just continue those same patterns even when they don't work?
Um, because of the dirty word familiar.
Mhm.
And notice that the root of familiar is family. The family of origin is a very intense classroom where children learn how to relate to others, especially in relationships involving love. And when they learn these lessons, they become familiar. They become the default, the place where children go to understand what love is like. And we don't teach about love relationships in school, if you've noticed.
Mhm.
Um, if you ask someone, what did you learn about love? If I stop someone out in the street, they'd probably think I'm weird, number one. But number two, they would look at me with a look like, what are you talking about? What I learned about love relationships? Like, what? I don't know. Most people don't know what they've learned about love relationships. Yet it's a very important question if you think about it. So the familiarity of these learnings that we experience in our early life can be replicated with such a devotion to doing that over and over again because it feels like home. It's familiar and it's not done consciously. And this is something to understand that the mind can create experience unconsciously. And that's a very important thing because so much of unconscious experience can be unhealthy. It can also be healthy too, by the way. I just want to make that comment. If you grow up in a home where mom loves dad and dad loves mom, and you see evidence of it, and you see them working out problems when problems occur, and people talk about their feelings and experience, you'd be learning a lot of great stuff about healthy relationship experiences. You'd be bringing that into your love life, and chances are looking for a partner that replicates that for you, with you. You'd kind of gravitate towards these people because that's what you've been familiar with. And chances are that good stuff would show up in your love life. And even if it didn't, it might show up the second time around because it's ingrained, it's learned early. So I don't want people to think that is what you learn from your family of origin is just destined to be unhealthy. Not at all. And what goes along with that is that a lot of people recreate healthy stuff in their love life and they don't even know they're doing it. They do it because that's what they've learned and they're doing the same thing in their love life and it's not something they think about. Okay. But when it's unhealthy, that consciousness of what's going on becomes 10 times more important because it's my belief and my experience as a psychologist that teaches me that when it's unhealthy, the only way you're going to break that pattern is by using the power of consciousness. Consciousness is a wonderful asset. And when coupled with learning, it gives people the capacity to begin to challenge these things that we've learned. In my book, I talk about what I call the unlearning method. It's a 3-step method. The first being to identify consciously what these replicating patterns are, what we've learned. The second step is to challenge them, to disrupt them, to become aware very intensely that these things are unhealthy and they're derailing your love life. They're creating disappointment over and over again. And the third step is to become aware of how you might shift your love life in a new direction. And the new direction is oftentimes predicted by the opposite. If I grew up in an abusive home, I really have to practice respectful love relations. If I've been abandoned as a child and I find unavailable partners and replicate that abandonment, I really have to think about commitment. and look for partners who possess that ability. If I grew up in a home where there was neglect, for example, I have to think about what devotion looks like in a relationship where people are devoted to each other. And there's in my book, I collected 10 unhealthy relationship experiences that kept showing up in my practice over the years. The kinds of things people were exposed to that they learned a lot of unhealthy things from. So the opposite of these unhealthy experiences gives us a little bit of a structure, a little bit of an idea of where the change could go in order to have a healthier relationship experience. So it's something to work on. We're back to the working on your love life.
Like it must be a woman thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I keep them for years. He's like, I just deleted everything in my phone. Like,
that is such
how
a
are you gonna
man.
know what happened 6 years ago?
Let me ask you this. Do you, Russell, do you like delete random text messages or like the whole thing? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do delete random text messages, as in like spam and stuff like that. Like I would like
normal
but the thing, my phone is also set up that after 30 days it deletes itself.
Oh hell no.
Yeah, because I just don't I if it's 30 days, I don't need to know about it. I mean, the only thing I think,
can you remember stuff from 30 days
What
ago?
the fuck?
Yeah, no, but I mean
30 days.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
dude,
30 days.
My phone better save shit for 30 years. Like I can't.
Right? No way.
I treat it as a new experience, but it's fresh memory.
I know a lot of the work that you do is about empowerment, and it's getting through the abuse or the trauma, and then how to move forward. And I know that is where a lot of our viewers and listeners struggle. They feel unlovable. They feel that they can't trust anyone again. They feel that they will just be better off alone. So I would love for us to talk to those people for a little bit and talk about some of the steps they can take to empower themselves after going through abuse and moving forward and becoming a survivor.
And I love the word survivor in context of this, because that is part of why survivors deserve and can go have these long-term loving relationships, healthy ones, because of the fact that you survived something. You did leave, you got out. And I want to speak to those people who maybe didn't even choose to leave, because I have heard that before, where circumstances made it where they had to leave and they weren't the one to choose it. And so they may minimize their power, and in their choosing, because of the situation, you still survived and you still got out. When you have gone through something like that, I was talking before about your nervous system being acclimated to stress. The interesting thing is that when someone goes through that, they have these new integrated skills. If you sit back and listen and believe in them, they're there, where you're going to be able to pick up on things. I mean, you said it's okay if I swear. I feel like your bullshit meter will be a little bit more in tune than it was before. So there's that. That's a huge piece. Secondly, just listening to a podcast like this, or reading books, or educating yourself, you're going to start to learn things that you wouldn't have even been interested in learning prior. So now that you're learning, knowing that you are going to attract someone who kind of vibrates on the same frequency as you is really impactful. And that's one of the reasons I think I encourage people to take a beat after, get to know yourself without that controlling relationship. Some people forget what kind of food they like, or movies they like, or who they want to spend their time with. Like, figure out the things you love and then individualize yourself, express your differences, and don't be afraid to, from the very beginning, state a boundary, throw it out there. There really is no wrong time to throw a boundary out in the very beginning, because then you're going to weed out those relationships early on. It should be reciprocal. It shouldn't just be, well, they like me, so I like them. It's got to be a two-way street. I could keep going for a whole.
So I want to go back to when you were in your unhealthy situation, your
Mhm.
abusive relationship, and you said you realized at that funeral that something had to change, but it took time for you to make that change. What I would like for you to talk about, though, is some of the steps, the baby steps that you took in that 12 months, because I do think a lot of people feel like, well, I have to leave today. I got to get out now. And if I don't do that, well, I guess I'm just stuck. So, will you talk about your thought process in being there, but beginning the small, healthy changes?
Mhm.
And the honest answer is that there are quite big pockets of time in that time where I have very little memory. I think it's one of the way that our brains do well in looking after us, isn't it? Of it
Mhm.
just kind of, yeah, you don't need to hold on to that bit. Let's let that bit go. And I do remember going home from that funeral and having that conversation and just saying, this isn't work. This isn't working. I can't do this anymore. I don't have the energy to do this anymore. We both know it's not working. And whatever happens, I don't see us being able to fix this. And then it was almost a case of just trying to reset some different boundaries of, okay, what does this look like? I mean, I don't think for 1 minute he believed I was going.
Mhm.
And I guess from looking back on it, I probably tried to use that as an advantage of, okay, he thinks this is not going to happen. So I can just put things in place, start setting things up in the background, start looking for that opportunity to be able to go, knowing that he's just going to carry on day to day without really putting too much value on what I've said. But knowing that I'd said it, knowing that I'd had that conversation, and knowing that I had said that out loud,
Mhm.
and that I knew then I could start doing what I needed to do. And for me, it was just a lot of things about trying to put things in place, like trying to sort of make some small changes to finances. I mean, I still didn't have that conversation with people.
Mhm.
So when I did move out, people knew I was moving out, but they didn't necessarily know the full picture. I guess some people probably had their suspicions, but it wasn't a conversation that was had. And I didn't have those conversations with people until quite a long time after, purely just to kind of have that accountability of, okay, you
Mhm.
need to know this, because then I've got that support there. If I start talking about doing something differently, then you can help hold myself accountable. So I think there's lots of small changes of just trying to kind of get things ready so that when an opportunity came about, I was ready to go. And then just, I think it is a bit of a blur, if I'm being honest.
Mhm.
But it was just a case of, I think it's just that hope. Something
Mhm.
changes when that hope kicks in, and you can see that there will be a path out. And I can't describe it. You're nodding. I know you probably get
Mhm.
it, and I think there will be other people listening who get it. But there was an element of hope that changed that dynamic of the survival for a reason. I mean, my son was the reason. Up until that point, just the survival for him was my reason to get up and keep going. And then, once I'd made that decision to go, it was just the dynamic shifted slightly into changing for a future, hope for a different future rather than just keeping going.
Mhm.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No,
It's a very, very hard thing to describe, isn't it?
it is, but for me, like you said, it does completely make sense because I feel like when we make that decision inside of us, whether we verbalize it or not, when we decide I am going to do this, and yes, it might take me a week, a month, a year, but
Mm,
I am doing it, something changes inside of you because you know that you've made that decision. And I think there is a difference. They say it takes people 7 times, average 7 times to leave an abusive relationship. But I think when you really decide, it, your being knows it, and it just
yeah.
feels different to you.
Yeah. And I think this is what's really important. Not not just for people who are in this situation, but for people who are friends and family of people in this situation, is you can't take control of this. I totally get, you want to roll your sleeves up, you want to get in there and help them to do this. But that's just another element, even though with the best of intentions, it's another element of somebody taking control or being in control of this individual's life. And so you have to give them the space, and that, no, just keep telling them that support is there. When they're ready, you will be there. But as hard as it is, you've got to just sit there and wait until that person makes that decision for themselves, because it's a totally different feeling to you making that decision for them. And that's why I think there is a big return for, when law enforcement get involved or when support services get involved, and with the best of intentions, put that individual in a position where they feel they have to, rather than choosing to. Two totally different things.
I would love for you to talk about stress management, and obviously we don't want to give away all your tips and tricks, but what is the biggest issue that you see with people that causes them to have stress issues?
Great question. So the biggest issue that I see with people that causes them to have these issues with their body is that they do not process stress. We are good at processing and experiencing our joyful emotions, but the more challenging ones, we're just like, push through, keep going, soldier on. So taking the time to slow down and process that stress is one of the most important things that we can do, because our body, there's 3 different stages to stress. The first is the stage of alarm. And that's the like, holy shit, there's a bear coming at me moment, where your body's just like, ugh, and you want to run away. So you're going to do the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response in that case. And so that's what our body was designed for. That's what our stress switch was designed to handle. A little quick burst of stress, and then you turn it off. But our body doesn't know the difference between a bear running at us and finances and work stress and family stress and living through a pandemic stress and all of the things. So we move from that quick state of alarm into the stage of resistance. And so this is where our body's like able to manage okay, it's supporting okay, and it's keeping the stress damage at bay. And so in this phase is where we really need to focus in on turning that stress switch off, which I can give you lots of strategies for in a minute. And so when we do that, then we're going to keep the stress hormones at a level that our body can manage. If we don't process that stress, then we move into the stage of exhaustion. And this is where our body kind of gives out on certain things. Our digestion goes sideways. We can't think clearly. We get that terrible brain fog. We're not sleeping very well because we have so much cortisol in our system that wakes us up at 3:30 in the morning. And it's saying like, get started with your day, friend. So it's all of these things in that stage of exhaustion that we can prevent if we know how to turn off that stress switch.
So let's talk about that. How do we know when we need to turn it off, and then how do we turn it off?
So if you are a human living in this current world, you need to learn how to turn off your stress switch. If we're just being frank and honest here. So
yes,
every single person needs to know how to do this. And so our stress switch is really quite simple. So we have 2 different sides of our nervous system that we can't control. It's called the autonomic nervous system. So we've got the sympathetic side, that's the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, kind of. Freeze or fawn are a little bit weird, and we can talk about those in a sec. So the sympathetic side is the fight or flight side. And that's when our heart is beating fast, we're breathing really quick, our eyes are like nice and dilated so we can take in everything from our environment. Also in this phase though, if you think about it, if you're running away from a bear, contemplating complex problems, solving difficult things, like that's not a priority. So you lose that access to that part of your brain. Your instincts are prioritized at that point. So then on the opposite side, the parasympathetic nervous system side, when the switch is off, that's the rest and digest, the healing side. We get lots of blood flow to our digestion, so we can do a lot of healing to our body. We get access to that higher level thinking brain, all of the good things. And then also our breathing is slow. So what the research has showed us, which is really cool because it's actually very easy to do, is one of the easiest ways to turn off that stress switch is to slow down our breathing so that it's 5.5 seconds on the inhale, 5.5 seconds on the exhale. And so by doing that for 5 breaths, you are actually triggering your stress switch to turn off. Now, the freeze or fawn experiences happen when that switch gets stuck in the middle. You're not in either side of those nervous systems fully. And so that's where we can either get the deer in the headlights, can't move, can't breathe, can't do anything, or when we want to placate absolutely everything around us, control everything around us to be able to get things back to a safe space. But yeah, even in the freeze or fawn response, controlling your breathing, slowing that down is key to getting back into that part of your body where you can have control over things. So if you do that 5.5 second breathing 5 times a day, it's really easy to continue to lower those stress hormones. And I know that 5 times a day sounds like a lot, especially for busy people. But if you do it when you first get up in the morning, before each meal and before you go to bed, that's 5.
And I mean, you have to breathe anyway. So it's not like you're having to do something extra with your time.
Exactly. And it literally takes 50 seconds to do. So
What does it feel like now? Or what was the process like for you to get to a point in life where better wasn't good enough? You know what I mean? That like good is what you're after, healthy, happy, not just better.
Damn. That one definitely has me on the back of my rocker over here, because it's not a black and white answer. It's not like a simple fix. I can't take a magical pill. If I could, I definitely would.
We would market that shit.
Yeah, we would give it to everybody to make it all better. And shit got way worse after that. And it was when I got married when I was 20, because again, stage 5 clinger over here. There were so many red flags, so many things that were like the relationship with my dad, other abusive relationships I'd been in. And I got divorced when I was 22. And it was a point, and it was just a very, very tiny point, that after he quit multiple of his jobs without telling me, that he bought a dog without telling me, and he let it poop and pee everywhere. It was I had to work so much overtime, close to 80 hours per week, just to provide for the two of us, all the debt we went into. And at this point, I had been the heaviest I had ever been. I'd been around 250 pounds, and my health was really going downhill. But I was like, I did Taekwondo in high school. I'm going to go see if I can even do it. And the instructor did like the intro 101 class, and he's like, you still have a lot of the form. I'm on the way home. I call my mama, and I'm like, Ma, I could afford this if Andy wasn't around. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, he's become one of the grossest porn addicts ever. Like, just gnarly shit. And he doesn't bring any happiness in my life. I got home and I gave him 3 hours to pack his shit and get out. And I sat in a parking lot in a local community college. And at least in Phoenix, they have a lot of the community colleges have campus security, that he saw me there for hours, and he came up and he's like, what's going on? Like, why are you here? And I'm still in tears. And I told him what happened. And he's like, you stay as long as you need, and the bathrooms are over there, and let me know if you need food. And was just such a kind soul. And that was not the end of the abuse that I went through, because I definitely didn't know how to cope with any of it. But there was a strand of enough is enough. I am strong enough, and I can do this. And fast forward throughout the next 10 years, I am taking self-development courses, therapy, really figuring out what I want out of life, because I never thought that it was possible. How to get out of my head and think everyone's staring at me and judging me, and it's taken me probably till the last 4 years that I'm like, nobody gives a shit. They really don't. If they're going to judge me for my sparkly gold overalls, do it. Dare you. You want to come make fun of me for it? Fuck off. Like, that is something that has taken years to develop, and very, very small actions that built upon themselves, like a gratitude journal, writing 3 things a day that I was grateful for. I was really, really angry with my mom. And she is, oh, it's going to make me tear up. She is seriously such a good human that went through shit too. And I wrote for months of things that I loved about my mom, because I needed to find a way to forgive her and let her be her, yet still have my boundaries. When she becomes monster mom, which can sometimes happen, I let her go. She can deal with it. I don't need to deal with that shit. I don't need to be the people pleaser to try to control the abuse. I don't live with her. I don't need to answer the phone. I don't need to answer her texts. I still love her, yet I don't need to go through that anymore. And it's been amazing to watch my mom grow too, because she's always grown with me, where my dad is seriously still a psychopath and I don't talk to him anymore. And I found out that my stepmom's going through a lot of the same stuff. And it's really hard because there's a phrase called flying monkeys that narcissists and gaslighters will use as basically someone to get to you. Instead of, if you cut that tie, like let's say Claudia, you're I'm the narcissist and you're the person I'm trying to get to, I'll use Steve to talk to you because you won't talk to me, and try to get you to guilt, like, oh, Jen's sick, or oh, Jen got in a car crash, or something that will pull on your heartstrings to get you to talk to me again.
I would love for you to throw out your top piece of relationship advice.
You deserve to be happy. It's about being happy. You need to come to terms with the fact that you deserve to be happy. Sometimes we think marriage is supposed to be painful, that we're supposed to take whatever our partners inflict on us. No, you deserve to be happy, and that you have the power to create the happiness you deserve. It is your responsibility. It is not your partner's. Very often people also think you enter into marriage and that your spouse is supposed to make you happy. No, you make yourself happy, and you are not responsible for your partner's happiness either. So pursue the happiness you deserve.
Right.
We are going to take a quick turn here before I let you go, and we're going to talk about tattoos, as you still say. That is where your Australian does come out a little bit. You don't have any tattoos. Is there
no tattoos?
Is there a reason why there's no tattoos?
You know what? Just probably never kind of got to the point where I was like, this jumps out of me, or I'd love to have this as a tattoo. I can't really answer. I guess, yeah, I either haven't found the right tattoo, or just it hasn't kind of like, struck me at the right time.
Okay, so let's say you have to get one, and I'm going to take out all the traditional barriers. So it's not going to hurt. It's not going to cost you any money. And then you can snap your fingers and make it disappear whenever you want. So what would you get, and where would you put it?
I would probably get, I wouldn't get something huge. Like I wouldn't get like a sleeve, or like,
you wouldn't do
I wouldn't go that far. But I think I'd probably try and do something that was like close to home. So maybe, like initials of, people I've lost, or like, motivation, something that's like a motivation without it being like, put your rubbish in the bin, like not like that, but more just like, the initials like TDC or something. And you know what, if I get a tattoo, I'd want to get it where you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do remember I dated this girl, and she kept telling me she's got tattoos, and I was like, I could never see them. And then she had them, one on each ankle, and they were literally like a letter this big. And I kind of thought, if I'm going to get tattoos, then let's get one that actually people can see, not when you take your shoes and socks off, you can sort of see it.
I agree. And I like that. So do you think there's a chance? Maybe one day.
I would say if you'd asked me that like 5 years ago, it was probably like maybe 50-50.
Mhm.
I'd say at this point, it's probably like a 60-70, at the right
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
on. Right on. I have good artists, so I can definitely, when you're ready, I can send you to the right place for sure.
Well, I tell you what, the irony of the thing is, because we were talking about the Tattoo, the Bondi Ink TV
Mhm.
show. So where I'm from in Bondi Beach, like I would pass that place like maybe like 4 or 5 times a week if I
Mhm.
walk down. And it's huge. Yeah, it's a really professional spot. So that wasn't enough, even though I walked past it, to kind of
Right.
get me to get a tattoo. So maybe being in Los Angeles, maybe something changes.
Well, it's never too late. It's never
Right.
too late.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media so you'll never miss what's going on. Remember, until next week, you are strong enough and you are worth it. Thank you for listening to the Strong Enough podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching Strong Enough. And on YouTube, we're on the Spear Talk channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strong Enough Pod. If you have suggestions for an upcoming episode or a future guest, please reach out at strongenoughpod@gmail.com. Remember, you are worth it.